Barakallahu fikum wa jazakumullahu khaira. I ask Allah to facilitate this for us and to make this easy for us and to protect us from mistakes. So, we're continuing in Al-Mu'taqad al-Saghir by Imam Ibn Khafeef, the direct student of Imam al-Ash'ari. We're closing in on the end of the book, and we are in the author's section about Sufism and sainthood. And his talk about Sufism is in reality above my pay grade. Despite my reviewing and listening back and reading over, it's still above my pay grade. So, yani, for some of his statements, I cannot do as well as I would like to do. So I'm going to do my best, and may Allah Ta'ala protect me from mistakes. Yani, some of these things I can't elaborate on. So I'm not going to try to. So let's get out of the book safely, bi'ithnillahi ta'ala. May Allah make it so. Ameen. I want to start from this line that we read before, where the author says, Rahimahullah, ويعتقد أن العبد ينقل في الأحوال حتى يصير إلى نعت الروحانية. And he, that believer, holds as conviction that a God slave is transferred through stages. He goes through stages. Ahwal. So even this word, ahwal, so stages, circumstances, this means something to the Sufis. I can't talk too much here. He goes through ahwal, which we translated here as stages, circumstances, until he attains the attribute of ruhaniyah, translated here as spirituality. And what's meant is until he becomes a saint, a wali. Okay. And maybe you know, some of our brothers and sisters, they don't prefer to use the word saint. They just say wali only. They don't say saint. But I say saint because, yani, we translate other things also. I didn't see why, yani, how we can do it here and not do it there. Then we say angels for malaika. We said prophets for anbiya and other things. So, yani, we said miracles for mu'jiza, other things. So then I didn't see why you can't say saint for wali. So that's why I translate it like that, to close the language barrier there. So he goes through stages until he attains the attribute of ruhaniyah, which is translated here as spirituality. And we could highlight these so they can be investigated more. Then once he becomes a saint, فَيَعْلَمَ الْغَيْبِ, then he will come to know some of the unseen, not all of the unseen. The author's statement, it requires clarity. That's why some of is in parentheses. As if he said, he knows the unseen, he will know the unseen. meaning some of it. وَيُطْوَى لَهُ الْأَرْض, and the earth folds for him, is folded, is folded. Passive voice. And the earth is folded for him. وَيَمْشِيَ عَلَى الْمَاءِ, وَيَمْشِيَ عَلَى الْمَاءِ, and then he will walk on water. وَيَغِيبَ عَنِ الْأَبْصَارِ, and he becomes hidden from sight. I did cover that, but there was something I wanted to tell you last time about walking on water. That's something that awliya have done, even from the nation of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even amongst the companions. Ibn al-Jawzi, in his book Sifatul Safwa, he has a lot of stories of awliya in there, and a lot of stories of people who were telling about their getting into wilaya, their first getting into wilaya, what they were experiencing. So one of those stories he logs in that book of his is a man who said that it crossed his mind that he could walk on the water or stand upon the water. He says, so he put his feet on the water and he stood upon the water. He said, while he was standing upon the water, something crossed his heart. Something like some waver, I don't know if you could call it a doubt or second guess or something. Something crossed his heart. As soon as that thing crossed his heart, he said his feet went right down through. He stopped standing on the water. As soon as that something crossed his heart, his feet went down into the water. Subhanallah. May Allah grant us the steady hearts of firm faith. Ameen. Then he says, وَالسُّكْرُ لِلْمُرِيدِينَ حَقٌّ وَلِلْعَارِفِينَ بَاطِلٌ. So now he's going to start talking some talk that I really can't handle, so I'll try my best here. So these Sufis, they have words they use. And translating those words literally doesn't necessarily make us understand what those Sufis are saying. But without very good understanding of what they are saying, I might not know the best way to translate some of those things. Like here, وَالسُّكْرُ لِلْمُرِيدِينَ حَقٌّ. The sukr for the seekers is real. So it's translated here as intoxication. Drunkenness is sukr. If someone is drunk, he's called sekran. He's described as sekran. The sukr, intoxication or drunkenness. That's a literal sense there. But we're not talking about someone who drank something or ingested something. We talk about someone whose heart is being trained to love Allah on another level. The murid, the murid is the one who wants something. So we're calling him the seeker. The murid is the seeker. He is the one who is under the arif, the aware one. All of this is my attempt to translate. It'll maybe just bring the concepts closer to us. So the yani, sukur. So in a literal sense means intoxication, drunkenness. Uh, is drunk from the love of God. Drunkenness. It's not, yani, you heard me already. It's not a drunkenness due to something that he digested or ingested. So, so this is literal translation I'm attempting to, yani, get benefit out of. The sukur, drunkenness from the love of God, is true for the seekers, but false, batil, for the aware ones. Al-arifin. Again, this is Sufi talk here. Al-arifin, the aware ones. What does this mean? Is there a better translation? And what does the statement mean also? Not just the words. Al-arifin, the aware ones, the sukur, the drunkenness, if that works. And some other words we're going to encounter. The sukur, according to the Sufis, is a circumstance, is a state that happens to the murid, the seeker, in which he becomes heedless of what is around him. He becomes heedless of what is around him because of being, because of drowning in the love of God. The sukr is something that happens to the seekers. Who are these seekers? These are not regular students of knowledge, learning hadith and tafsir and Arabic. These are the ones who are studying, or yani, who are uh, apprentices for the Sufis. They want to learn about the states of the heart, and they want to achieve the status of sainthood. This sukr that is translated here as drunkenness from the love of God, it's a state that happens to the seekers, which is for them to become heedless of what is around them because of their drowning in the love of God. So this drunkenness for the, or this heedlessness, that takes place, that happens to the seekers, is true. It happens to them. وَلِلْعَارِفِينَ بَاطِلٌ, and for the aware ones is false, meaning does not happen to them. And what the author is saying is, when the seeker elevates in status and becomes amongst the aware ones, then he would get over this particular state. He would be over this state of heedlessness of what is around him because of drowning in the love of God. And he would get into another state. So the Sufis, they talk about states of being, perhaps, if you want. Anyone who yani comes across this translation here, if he knows the best words for these Sufi terms, then let him fix this and adjust it so that the best words can be put here. وغلبات الحق على سائر الخلق جائز. غلبات الحق. So so غلبة is to be overcome. So it says here overtakings. Uh, let's say the cases of being overcome. الغلبات غلبات الحق. الحق is Allah. So وغلبات الحق as if it's saying God's overcomings happen to the other people. What does that mean? The other people here means the other Sufis. The Sufis. The Sufis have ranks. There's 3 ranks of Sufis. The author mentions them in the next sentence. He's saying all these ranks, this غلبات الحق, the غلبات الحق, I don't really know the best way to translate that. The cases of being overcome, Allahu Alam, happens to all of the people, yani all of the Sufis. What he's saying though is that there are some things that happen to some of the people, some of these Sufis, the beginners, the murids. And there are some things that don't happen to some of these Sufis, the masters, the aware ones. And there are some things that happen to all of these Sufis. And then he names them. So, but how to explain that, I don't know. Here, the cases of being overcome, I'm not sure how to translate that. غلبات الحق. They happen to all Sufi people. Who are these Sufi people? He says here, وَالْأَحْوَالُ لِلْمُتَوَسِّطِينَ والمقامات للعارفين والشدة للمريدين. The ahwal, so it says here spiritual states. The ahwal, the states, the circumstances are for the intermediate, those in the middle. والمقامات, here it says spiritual stations. Maqam is a station. These are for the aware ones. Washidda, and says hardship. Nayani, intensity is for the seekers. Those are the beginners. How about we transcribe the actual Arabic word? So ahwal, we have here in parentheses spiritual states. Ahwal is the plural of hal. So the ahwal, hal, don't you say kayfa al hal, kayfa haluk, how's your case, how's your situation? The ahwal, the spiritual states, perhaps, those are for the intermediate, the ones in the middle. Why he mentioned the ones in the middle first, though, I don't know. Wal maqamat, and the maqamat spiritual stations, if you want, Allahu Alam, are for the aware ones. Those are the masters. And the shiddah, intensity, is for the seekers. I don't know what that means. What maqamat means? What shiddah means? What ahwal means here? I don't know. Yani, I had to throw in the towel here. I was stalling and stalling for some weeks to so I can develop strong explanation for you. Well, I was not able to. So khalas. Yeah, I am defeated here, and I'll just try my best for you here, and then we'll be done with the book soon. And may Allah grant me the knowledge of Sufism and you too, and then we can understand these words very well. We will be living them. May Allah enable us to live them and know what that means by experience. Ameen. He says, وَالصَّحْوُ أَفْضَلُ مِنَ السُّكْرِ. Sah, yeah, in a literal sense, soberness, sobriety, being clear. Is superior to, so let's put the words here. So the sahu is superior to sukr, intoxication, and drunkenness. From the love of God, that is. These are Sufi words, not regular words. والإفاقة أفضل من الاصطلام. إفاقة يعني recovery. No, let's say uh, being clear-minded is superior to al-istilam. Al-istilam is confusion. Also related to the love of God. Confusion due to the love of God, related to the love of God. Istilam. Yani, the sahu is a level higher than the sukr. The sukr, like we said already, the sukr is for the beginner to be heedless of what is around him. And the sahu is higher than that. And sahu itself means, in a literal sense, clarity, purity. And the ifaqa is better than the istilam. Ifaqa, well, the istilam, it's the confusion that crosses the heart and uh, freezes the person, stops him, catches him, and then the slave will be drowning in the sea of love to the extent that his senses are removed. So if you never heard of this type of thing before, then yani, now you know. In general sense, we did learn about this, some of what's being said here. Let's talk about a person loving God so intensely that he loses his mind. He becomes unaware of what's around him and this type of thing, or he gets stuck. Perhaps I told you, as one man, his wife was a waliyah. He was married to a saint, and so he used to tell stories about her. He said one time to her, well, he was conveying something that happened one time, that he called her, so she did not respond. So after that, he talked to her. He said, "You didn't hear me?" She said, "I heard you, but I was thinking about Allah and I couldn't move." Then I came to, then I was able to move again. So now I'm responding to you. Also, there was a report about a young man, and it was said you heard of Dhunun al-Misri, the Nubian, who was a great scholar at the time of Imam Malik, and he said, "مهما تصورت ببالك فالله بخلاف ذلك." Whatever you imagine, Allah is different. Dhunun al-Misri. It was said about him that he used to go on quests looking for the saints who lost their minds. You know, he was looking for them, and there are stories that he found them sometimes. What I saw of those stories, as if his finding them was a karama in itself. How you keep finding them? Allahu A'lam. At one time, he met one. He said it was a young man, like living out in the woods or something. So he doesn't live in the city. He said really he had to go through a lot of effort to get to where he was. Like it's not passable. There's not like a path there you can walk on. So to get to him in the first place, he had to really put a lot of effort through foliage and the likes of that. He said when he found him, Allah knows how he knew where to go. He said he saw a young man. His nice has a very nice face, and his face is shining, and he looks like he's confused. So he started talking to him. So I don't remember all of the story, all of the conversation. He's talking weird to him also, like this person that he met. It's like his mind is not all there. He said, Dhunun, yeah, oh Dhunun, you like the crazy ones? He said, oh yes, I love the crazy ones. And he said that this one was saying, Ya Allah, how long will you leave me stuck in my uh, being dazzled? How long will you leave me stuck in my being dazzled? It's like he's stuck. He's saying, Ya Allah, I'm dazzled. I can't get out of it. The Shaykh says, Rahimahullah ta'ala, the perfect saints of Allah, the perfect saints. To be a saint, you're going to be perfect, a perfect believer. But some of the saints are better than others. The perfect saints, they don't lose their minds from the love of Allah. And the saint who maintains his senses is better than the saint who loses his senses. But a saint is better than someone who's not a saint in the first place. A saint who loses his mind and loses his senses is better than someone who's not a saint who keeps his mind. But a saint who keeps his mind is better than a saint who loses his mind. And last time, or the time before last, I said a statement that probably needs an adjustment. I said, some of those, when they have perfectly been in love with Allah Ta'ala, they lose their minds. And I don't now want to say it that way, because the ones who don't lose their minds, they are better. So what I want to say then is some of those who they very deeply delved into the love of God, as opposed to saying they perfectly loved God. I want to say it a different way. They delved deeply into loving God in such a way that took their minds away. And we learned that if there's a caliph, then he will isolate those saints who lose their minds. He will isolate them because they are potentially harmful to the people. Because when they lose their minds, and from our teachers, we don't call them crazy, but some of the scholars call them majnoon, majaneen. But not every loss of mind is junoon, insanity. Not every loss of mind is junoon, insanity. So, based on that, uh, some of those will lose their minds. They're not called, we don't call them crazy ones. We call them mejdhub. Instead of majnoon, mejdhub. The Sheikh says that keeping the saint who keeps his mind is better than the majdhub, better than the saint who loses his mind. Then the author said, Rahimahullah, he said, does the majdhub person have signs? You reminded me actually where I was going with what I was saying. If there were a caliph, he would isolate those because they are potentially harmful to the people. How so? Because when they lose their minds, it's like they are crazy. So they might say things, they're not accountable, and they might say things that are against the religion, things that they would never say had their minds been present. But a lot of the people don't know about the case of the majadib, these, one might say senseless saints. These saints without senses, meaning, as if they are crazy. They don't know about the case of these ones. And so all they know is that he's a saint, he's a wali, and they want to be around him and just hang around him and uh, you know, touch him and rub their clothes on him, the kufi on him and stuff like that. Are they still praying? They might not pray. He doesn't have a mind. He's basically, for all intents and purposes, he's like a crazy person. But he's still a saint, and he could even still do marvels, karamas, without his mind. One of the good brothers told me, maybe from someone else, I don't know if I will believe the story, but one brother he told me that there is a saint who lost his mind. So if you have someone who lost his mind, a lot of times, you're not going to really take him serious, right? If he were to come around, wouldn't the people just kind of joke with him and like not take him seriously? So even if he was a wali, you might not take him super seriously because he doesn't have his mind. So it was said that there was one like this, and he went to see a man. So that man, he welcomed him and talked to him, and he was mentioning how he missed his son. Son was away. So this one who lost his mind took his shoe off and put his shoe up to his ear like he's talking on a phone. He told him, "Talk to your father." So then he offered that man his shoe. "Here, talk to your son." So the man said, "Khalas, yani, not now. I don't feel like this now. Give me a break for now, not today." So he was telling him, "Take it." So he was like, "No, not today, not now." It was, "Take it, take it." So just to make him stop, he took the shoe, put it to his ear, said hello, and then he heard his son's voice. Then the author said, وَدُخُولُ الْعَارِفِ فِي الْأَشْيَاءِ غَيْرُ قَادِحٍ فِي حَالِهِ. Oh, wait. Does the Majdoub person have signs? I answered that. Would they be protected from things a Majnoon person would do? Not necessarily. Meaning, the meaning of my answer is, he could even say kufr while he is without his mind. So he's like a crazy person. But there's big difference. What his loss of mind is due to, it wasn't because he was born crazy. It wasn't because he got smashed over the head with a bottle and lost his mind, or a stick, or was in an accident. It wasn't because he consumed something that made him lose his mind, or because he got some kind of virus that made him lose his mind. It was the love of God. So this makes a difference. And what we learned is that these ones who are, for all intents and purposes, crazy, and they are saints at the same time, they will not smell like urine. They will not smell like urine. Even though they lost their minds, they will not smell like urine. He says, so they still praying? So he might not pray because he lost his mind. There was a story about one of them. He used to live in ruins. Crazy one. Or Yani, Majdoub. He used to live in ruins. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. ودخول العارف في الأشياء غير قادح في حاله. The aware one's involvement in worldly matters does not detract from his status. Does not take away from his status. فإذا excuse me فإذا صح التوكل لم يضر الادخار. For when reliance on God is sound, storing provisions does no harm. Yes, I can understand this one. The aware one's involvement in worldly matters does not detract from his status. Yani, he can do some things. Maybe he needs to go to the market or do other normal things. Didn't the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to repair his own clothing? They used to milk the sheep, etc. Alayhi salatu wassalam. His earning money, his involvement in worldly matters. Maybe he needs to go work. He has to go to a job interview, maybe, or something. Yeah, and this doesn't detract from his status. The prophets used to work. Abu Bakr used to work, and others amongst the Sahaba. And some of them were wealthy. They were saints, they were Sufis, and they were wealthy. So, like I mentioned for you, the Tasawwuf is not just a show, a display, showing yourself as some poor, humble, meek one, without fancy clothes and all of that. The true Sufi, his Tasawwuf is in his heart. It's not a show. If he has fancy clothing on, that is not a denial or a denial or yeah, a denial. That's not a denial of him being a saint or a Sufi. Wallahu a'lam. Allah knows best. We'll stop there. Any question? Please. Have I heard if there are any saints in the U.S.? No, I haven't. SubhanAllah. And I'll remind you before we go that the achieving sainthood is more difficult for the women. Achieving sainthood is more difficult for the women for some reasons. Amongst those reasons is that they go through times without prayer and without fasting because of their menses. This slows down their quest to reach sainthood. And also because the women tend to have some qualities that would slow down their quest to sainthood. Yeah, some, you know, how some of the women are, in terms of maybe have some weakness in some areas. Like, what are those qualities? Yeah, maybe they have some weakness in some areas. For example, if right now we were to talk about gossiping, who do you think is most, who's thought to be more gossipy, a man or a woman? What do you think? You have an answer for me? Yeah, woman. So that's just an indication of what I'm getting at here. They have some things about them, their nature, that would slow them down from getting to the higher ranks of sainthood. But they can get there. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, many men have become perfect. Many of them. He said, but only 5 women became perfect. Many men became perfect. Yani numerous ones. Look at what we are talking about now. Aren't there some men who are helping others get up, bringing others up into the levels of sainthood and Sufism. Yes, you're a master if you can do something like that. You find someone who can help to train you in the levels of piety. Those are men. Are there women like that? Well, the Prophet ﷺ said many men have become perfect, but only 5 women became perfect. So that's an indication of the that it is more difficult for the woman to achieve the level of sainthood. And now that you are hearing that, any of you sisters who have major intentions to become waliyat, saints like Mary, uh, you're hearing this, then does it offend you? Of course not. Rather, you're going to say, thanks for letting me know. Now I'm going to watch myself and I'm going to try harder. Any other question? May Allah enable the sisters to reach the sainthood and the brothers too. And maybe we will, inshallah, one day be talking about Saint Aisha and Saint Fatima and yani, some of the different sisters. May Allah make saints come from our Shaykh, the students and followers of our Shaykh, men and women. Ameen. And may Allah make scholars come forth from the followers of our Shaykh, men and women. Ameen.